right, welcome back to the Fast Break. I am your host, Drew Amburgy, and unfortunately, this is our last episode of the Fast Break because the school year is over. I'm going to have 4 guests on today as kind of a little last hurrah, and we're going to be talking about the second round of the playoffs. Last one, we were kind of recapping how the first week of the playoffs was going. Now that we're into round 2, we're down to just 4 matchups. It's getting down to the nitty-gritty down here. And first of all, I'm joined by my friend Matti. How we doing?
I'm Matti. Hello. I'm the Washington State Wazoo banana guy also.
Yes, banana guy. Follow him on Instagram. He will be the one wearing a banana suit.
Yes.
As always.
I tend
He's
to do
very
that.
on brand.
I do that a lot.
Yeah. And he happens to be a Miami Heat fan.
Let's go Heat, baby. Those are mine too.
Yeah, there you go. He's got his Adebayo hero, Bird, Allen. We got the 3 teams you're probably going to see in the Eastern Conference Final.
No, we have the 2 teams you're going to see and the Celtics.
Okay. Well, let's start this one off on
All
a bad note. All righty. But he's going to be talking about his Miami Heat team, who currently have a 2-0 lead over the Philadelphia 76ers, who are Embiidless. That's kind of a fun
That's
word.
a good one. Yeah,
That's
that's funny.
That sounds like a
Embiidless in Seattle.
Embiidless in Seattle. Although if Seattle got a team, I'd love to have Embiid there.
I want to meet Tom Hanks.
Okay. Yeah, Tom Hanks is a good guy. What about Chet Hanks? No?
Well,
How do you feel about him?
I'm not going to talk about that on camera.
Okay. All righty, let's get to basketball. Game 2, this one hasn't really been that close because obviously when you are missing,
it was a pretty close game, but
it wasn't bad, but the Heat eventually kind of flexed that muscle towards the end of the game.
Definitely.
And they won 119 to 103. Jimmy Butler, who's having a good series, 22 points, 12 assists as well too. Good him being a distributor. I mean, it helps get an assist when you guys are just knocking down shots at the rate they are right now. Bam, who's, I mean, people aren't talking about Bam as much as they should, but he is in that next tier of centers right after Jokic, Embiid, Giannis, if you want to consider him a center. It depends. But he's right in that next group of centers that are really, really good and young, kind of like that 8 in range. He dropped in 23 points, 9 rebounds, so good game for him. And then Oladipo, 19 points, and then your 6th man of the year, Tyler Hero, with a nice 18 points off the bench from Mr. South Beach. And, the Sixers, they're trying out there. I mean, it's tough when you got DeAndre Jordan. I mean, the drop-off from Embiid to DeAndre Jordan is brutal. And he's pretty much done. He's washed. So the Sixers are basically led by Tyrese Maxey. He dropped in a nice 34 points. Harden, only 20. And he looks like he's lost a step. And this one, it's really about, like, not only are the stars for the Heat outshining them, but it's also the bench as well, too. Just because, when you got to upgrade players like DeAndre Jordan, then your bench is completely washed. The Heat bench outscored the Sixers in this second game, 52-19, which that's basically just a recipe for disaster right there. What are your kind of thoughts on this series so far, obviously being clearly in the driver's seat right now?
Yeah. So it's been a tough couple of years to be a Heat fan.
Oh, you made the finals like 2 years ago. I don't want to hear it.
That was the bubble. That was the bubble.
The bubble counts.
It does count. That was where we really saw Tyler Hero pop off.
Depends who you ask.
I was very sad last year, and I may or may not have called us bubble frauds last year. I still loved my team, but it was very hard to. Tyler Hero was not playing at the level that he had played in the bubble.
Yeah, that's true.
It's really nice to see him back out there and playing as he is now.
Did have a little bit of a sophomore slump, but I think.
Did.
I mean, props to Spoelstra. I mean, moving him to coming off the bench. Obviously, though, like when you have a 6-man that good, he's playing starter minutes basically.
Right.
But yeah, it really smart move by them to have him off the bench.
Yeah, I mean, our bench in general is
loaded.
And
if Oladipo is gonna be playing like this, oh my goodness.
We may not be that as memorable name-wise with people like Gabe Vincent and Max Strus and Yurt. But they're still playing lights out. I mean, Strus is showing that he has range. He can play down low in the post. He's showing so much versatility. Caleb Martin hasn't been showing out as much lately, but he's still playing well. Gabe Vincent.
Vincent's been awesome.
I'm so happy that we have these lesser known players that are still contributing so much, as well as our starters. And this is without Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
We're playing without our point guard, which I think is just shows people were questioning our legitimacy as a team. I feel like. I mean, even throughout the season, you never really saw ESPN or anyone really posting about how the Heat are the #1 team in the East. That you don't see that.
It took me a long time to come around on them. I was Bucks basically all year, even a little bit of Nets. I knew if they got healthy, and then it was probably like mid-January, maybe February, where I was like, dude, the Heat are the #1 seed and they haven't been healthy all year. I mean, it's
exactly.
The disrespect of the Heat this year has been crazy.
There has been a lot.
And I honestly think it's just fuel to the fire for them. I mean, they're the type of team like, oh my gosh, if there's one team you wouldn't want to sleep on, it's a bunch of guys that throughout their entire career have been slept on, and now they got a chip on their shoulder.
Would you say it adds heat?
Heat culture? Heat culture? The Heat culture is crazy, though.
It is. I love
and
it.
they do you brought up a good point. They do a great job of developing young talent.
Yeah.
I mean, where was Gabe Vincent a season and a half ago? I mean, where was Max Strus like 4 months ago?
Exactly.
They just do a really good job of developing their younger players, and that's just the sign of a good franchise. Like Warriors, Suns, Heat, they just do a really good job of developing the players they have on their roster.
Also, Eric Spoelstra, top 10 coach all time.
Yeah.
I would argue.
He's definitely getting in that conversation. He's definitely getting in that conversation. But let's get back to this series.
Yes. Embiid,
I'm a little worried. I'm obviously very concerned about Harden. He's just not
the homie hopper of the league.
Yeah, hard cheeseburger. But he he just doesn't seem aggressive enough. And maybe it's just because he's lost a step and he knows he can't be
He
as
also
aggressive.
can't step back anymore.
Yeah. And I mean, Harden in 29 games with the Sixers has yet to take over 20 shots in a game, which is insane to me. Clearly, if he's at this level of his career, then Philadelphia is. I mean, that's a tough trade.
And it's not even like he's surrounded by a bunch of all-stars.
No.
It's not like he's not taking shots because he's facilitating and distributing the ball. That's not happening.
No, you got Danny Green out there who, on any given shot, is a liability to hurt a fan. And then you got, you got Maxey. Maxey's the bright spot for them.
Tobias Harris.
But for the rest of this series, let's get just right down to it.
Embiid's not coming back. I'm putting that out there right now.
Okay.
I was listening to the TNT guys.
From what I've heard, it's not great.
I heard that yesterday was the first day he was even able to look at his phone.
Yeah,
because
that's the concussion thing and I forget the scientific term, comm majors.
TBI, the traumatic brain injury.
What?
No.
I don't know. I forget what his specific the bone thing that he.
The orbital.
Orbital bone fracture or whatever. I don't know. I heard it's bad.
Yeah.
And so even if he does come back, I don't expect him to be fully Embiid.
No.
At this point, I'm probably guessing it's going to be a clean sweep. I mean, maybe they get one at home if Harden plays like MVP Harden again. I could see him snagging one game, but this is Heat in 5 max. Do you think there's anything?
I mean, I've been very confident in our group chat. On record, I think it's going to be a sweep. I wouldn't put it past the Sixers to take one game at home, maybe. But at the same time, the Heat have proven that they can play on the road, they can play at home.
Yeah, defense travels.
Our defense is exactly. I mean, if you saw the last play of the Hawks series, it wasn't even a clock run out. It was incredible defensive play and incredible pressure that led to a turnover and Oladipo. And I have that picture of Oladipo running out to the crowd and just because he's been hurt for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
The biggest highlight he had in the last couple of years was being on The Masked Singer.
Yeah.
I mean.
But I'm happy he's back.
I'm too.
And playing fairly well for them. And then as far as Eastern Conference Final goes, they're gonna be tough, and I could easily see them getting out of the East. But I will say this: I do think they need Lowry back.
I do.
If they're gonna beat the Bucks or the Celtics, I think they would have to have Lowry back.
Yeah, if we're gonna beat the Bucks, we have to have him back.
Yeah.
Celtics, I feel like, and there is a chance that the Celtics we do play the Celtics. It's
There's a good chance you play Celtics.
it's 1-1 right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good chance, and I feel like if we do play the Celtics, I feel like that would be a lot easier of a game than the
I
Bucks.
feel like whoever matches up in the Eastern Conference Finals, it's probably going 7.
I feel
think
like
it's gonna be a
Jason Tatum's still scared
bloodbath.
of Bam.
Okay. All right.
Bam's only like 6'9".
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Tatum's taller than him.
Yeah,
Tatum's also 19.
Tatum's not 19.
I know. I'm just kidding. That's the
I'm
joke.
19.
That's,
Wait.
That's the joke. That's the joke. Tatum's still 19.
Deuce
Okay.
is 19.
Well, let's wrap it up. Heat Sixers 2-0. I think
Sweet.
maybe by the time some of you watch this, it might already be over. I don't know. We'll see. But Heat 2, Sixers 0. Keep watching those NBA playoffs. I'm gonna be back at you with another guest right after the break.
Go Heat.
No.
Sometimes the weather changes, moves just like.
All right, welcome back. I'm now joined by, of course, friendly face, Jacob. He's on all the time. Love talking ball with him. How we doing, bro?
I'm doing great. Happy to be here again
Good,
for your
good.
final show, by the way.
I know, he was on the first one, now he's on the final one. Come full circle like a basketball. Shout out to Matti for that line. We're going to be talking Warriors-Grizzlies, possibly the most interesting series in this semifinals of the Western Conference. In Game 1, barn burner, obviously. The Warriors came out on top 117 to 116. We kind of saw Clay with it. Clay was clutch, hitting a three-pointer down the stretch to give the Warriors, to put the Warriors ahead to eventually win the game. We saw Jordan Poole basically just taking over. He dropped 31 points, 9 assists, and 8 boards. So he's been unbelievable for the Warriors this playoffs. Ja obviously did his thing for the Grizzlies in Game 1. He has to. He's basically 90% of their offense at this point.
Yes.
He had 34, 10, and 9, so an insane stat line from Ja. And Triple J with 33 points and 10 rebounds as well, too. So shout out Triple J. He's been awesome for them this year. This one was back and forth the whole game. Now, whenever the road team can steal Game 1, you could get a little bit shaky there. I know after Game 1, after the Warriors stealing that one, I was pretty concerned for the Grizzlies. I was like, oh, man, it's tough to lose Game 1 at home.
And it really makes Game 2 a must-win for
It's
that
a
home team.
must-win. What were kind of your thoughts on Game 1 of the series, seeing the Warriors come out 1-0?
Game 1, Warriors, it was really tight game. But I think the Warriors are still really making their mark and making their presence known. They're beating the Grizzlies in stats that the Grizzlies usually, throughout the regular season, have really, really based on and really emphasized in their own offense and defense. For example, Warriors are winning the rebounding battle in both games by quite a margin, not as big in the second game. But that first game, they're winning those rebounds battle, which is huge for missed shots, and then they're scoring a bunch in the paint. Grizzlies with, like you mentioned, Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Steven Adams, good on the inside, but the Warriors are still getting in there and not having to rely too much on their three because in those first 2 games they are struggling from 3, as we've seen. So it's been really important that the Warriors have been able to find other avenues to beat the Grizzlies and stay in these games. And then eventually, they brought out Game 1 in a very, very narrow margin.
Yeah, I think one of the things about the Warriors is when you got Poole, so obviously now you got another guy getting like 8 boards for you as well too. And you got Kuminga, who obviously has some size in there as well too.
Energy.
Yeah,
Plus
and
energy.
they're just such a constant flow team. Like, guys are always moving. Obviously, when you have a team that likes to shoot a lot of threes, such as the Warriors, as we all know, you're going to have some long rebounds. So if your guards are constantly looking to get offensive boards and active on the defensive boards as well too, eventually, like, some games the ball is just going to bounce your way more than it is other games. And, that you're seeing that a lot with this Warriors team so far in this series. But
And on top of that, like exactly what you're saying, that offense is always moving. So yeah, they may end up seeing the ball come to them by chance, but also it's just tougher for the Grizzlies to find someone, latch onto them, and box them out and get the boards as well. Just because, yeah, that Warriors offense always moving around, always looking to step ahead to find a shot.
Steph really wears off on everybody, and now you see Poole doing the constant moving where they just don't stop on offense, and then that's how you get to lead to wide open threes.
Yeah.
Now they haven't been shooting as great as they normally do. Now that's partly just playoff defense, being a little bit more intense on that end. But they were able to scrape out that game one at home, and I think maybe there was a little bit of a shock for the Grizzlies, kind of coming into this game. I mean, obviously, like, you're playing such a veteran team. Like, the Grizzlies have a little bit of experience, but I mean, this Warriors team, besides like Poole, Kuminga, maybe like Wiggins a little bit, the rest of these guys have loads of playoff experience. So they're just veteran, they're savvy. But you kind of saw those nerves and kind of the Grizzlies settle in more in game 2 of this series. So in game 2, Steph had a much better game in game 2. He dropped 27, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, so just filling up the box score. But the story of this game was, in game 2, was Ja. I mean, he just took over in the clutch moments of the game. Ja ended up with 47 points, so a playoff record for him. He joined Michael Jordan and LeBron James with 2 games above 45 points each before the age of 23 or 24.
I think it was
23.
Yeah.
So obviously elite company there. Unbelievable shot making in the clutch. I mean, down the stretch, so they were down 4 with 4 minutes left in game 2. And the Grizz ended the game on a 15-6 run, and Ja scored all 15 points, which is unbelievable. I mean, that's like LeBron against the Pistons taking over level. Not quite, because that was in the Eastern Conference Finals. Sent him to the finals. But still, like that type of level of just absolute dominance. Mid-range, just getting to the basket. He couldn't be stopped. And he had to, because, like you said, when you lose game 1 at home, that makes game 2 an absolute must-win. Because if you go down 2-0, going back, then going on the road, that series is over. Yeah. Unless you maybe have, like, I don't know, LeBron James on your team. But the big story of this one at the end was Ja. But at the beginning, it was that Dylan Brooks foul on Gary Payton Jr., the mitten, as they say. But really, really, really hard foul. Steve Kerr even came out and said it was dirty. It wasn't physical, which you don't see too many guys just come out and say, like, that was dirty nowadays. A lot of guys will be like, wishy-washy with it. But he came out and said it straight up. So Dylan Brooks did get suspended for game 3. Gary Payton is now out for the year. I think he fractured something in his arm.
It was his elbow.
Yeah, his elbow. Hit really awkwardly.
I saw some report maybe if they make the finals, he may return. But
possibly. But that's going to be – I mean, they got a good shot to make the finals, so we'll see. But that's a tough one because Gary Payton was kind of one of the only guys that could actually stay with Ja. Yeah. He kind of was one of the only ones that had the athleticism to kind of put the clamps on him. And you saw it in the second half. Nobody could stay with Ja.
Exactly.
So that could be one of those things where without a defender that can at least stay with Ja, he might go absolutely nuclear for the rest of the series. Yeah. Now, obviously, missing Dylan Brooks is a big thing for Game 3, but they're going to get him the rest of the series. First of all, do you agree that Dylan Brooks should have got suspended for Game 3? And now with Gary Payton out and Brooks out for Game 3, how do you kind of think that this one moment affects the whole series?
Yeah, I do believe that the suspension was worthy after the play. I mean, Payton was in the air.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Brooks just came out of nowhere and
Wasn't
pushed
really
him
close to the
while
ball.
he was in the air.
Yeah.
Not needed at all. So I believe, yes. And, like, just this suspension kind of sets the tone for the rest of the series, the rest of the players.
Yeah.
Just because, I mean, if you let this go, there's the great chance for escalation in future games of these tempers. So I think it's important. I don't think the Dylan Brooks injury is going to impact them too much because Brooks or just for one game because
Yeah.
Brooks has struggled in game one.
Yeah, he wasn't great. He
Um,
was pretty bad. I know a lot of people had bets on Brooks to bounce back in game 2 because
Yeah.
he had such a bad game 1, and then he was out in the first few minutes of the game.
I mean, so like the Grizzlies have wings they can interchange. They
Mm-hmm.
got Melton, who's like a near 20-point. He could drop 20 points per
Bane.
game if he wanted. Off the bench, Bane, who's been struggling, but I mean the Warriors are kind of locking in on him.
Yeah.
But I don't think it matters in the series too much. I think in the end it really is kind of a 3 versus 1 right now. Ja Morant versus the Splash Bros. You got Clay, Curry, and Poole, like you're saying, and it's just gonna come down to, I think, what Ja can do. I mean,
Yeah,
Bane
and
has
Triple
just
J.
been.
I think if Triple J can continue to put up the stats line,
Yeah,
that did in game
he had a
2,
really good first half in game 2,
or game 1.
but second half of game 2, I think he had like 2 points in the second half.
Yeah.
He's still making a difference on the defensive side, but I mean, it's just a lot for Ja to carry
Yeah.
one side of the ball if you don't have those other players helping out.
Thank God he's young. They can put the miles on him right now. If Ja was like 30, I don't know, I'd be a little bit more worried. But I mean, he just looks like he doesn't get tired. And the way he closed out that game, I mean, you got to be feeling good about that as a Grizz fan.
Yeah.
Going forward, just to know that, like, I mean, you got a guy that shows up when, like,
And not only
season's on the line.
Not only was he getting inside, which he just does crazy things we've not seen anybody do inside, but
His shot was hitting from outside.
5 for
game, too.
12 from 3. Hit 5 threes. Actually, he had just as many threes as Curry and Clay had together combined. So, I mean, it's great for Ja to see those threes going down early in the game, boost the confidence, and then end of the game. Amazing. I saw final 6 minutes, Ja took 8 of the Grizzlies' last 10 shots. Like you said, he scored the last 15 points. And they were just having high ball screens. Wiggins was guarding Ja, especially in the final 5 minutes. And they would just use ball screens. And literally every possession, ball screen, Ja goes around and then drives to the hoop. Something happens, whether it's a foul or he's going to hit the shot.
And, Wiggins is athletic, of course, as well, too. But, yeah, you get those high screens, and then it's, get the switch onto the guy you want him to. I think the Grizzlies, I don't know if it's sustainable what Ja did in game 2. Like, I don't know if that's going to be able to work when they travel to Golden State. What do you see going forward in this series? We're knotted up at 1-1. Do you think the Grizzlies have a legitimate shot at stealing one in Golden State? Do you think they come back to Memphis with a tied series, or do you think maybe Golden State takes both of these at home?
I think it's totally possible that Grizzlies grab one. But I think in the end, it's going to be the Warriors coming out with this series. In my opinion, I just think they just
got too much.
They just got too much firepower, and like I said, it's kind of just Ja against the world right now because the Bane's kind of just been totally shut out by the Warriors in these first 2 games. Jaren Jackson, he had a really good first game, like we said, struggled more in the second game. So I think it's just kind of 3-on-1, and like Warriors have won this game, have played this way with Clay struggling a lot. Clay's only shooting 28% from the field in his first 2 games. And he's just like missing like pretty open shots, or like not totally
Clay
open,
had
but
a rough game too.
open for Clay shots, and he's just not hitting them. So for the Warriors to be able to still compete with the Grizzlies and beat the Grizzlies when Poole is having an okay game 2, Clay's just not showing up yet. I definitely think the Warriors can take this over the Grizzlies, especially with their experience.
Yeah, I honestly think when the Warriors get in front of that home crowd, I think that Steph, Clay will feed off that energy.
Oh, yeah.
My prediction right now, I think the Warriors actually take both at home. I think the Grizzlies fend them off in Game 5 at home, send it to Game 6, and I think the Warriors wrap it up in 6. I'd love to see it go 7. I really would.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I just think the Warriors haven't even played that well, and they still were able to snag one on the road.
Yeah.
And I think them playing in front of their home crowd, I think they're just a dominant team at home. And I think Curry Curry and Clay have not played that well.
Yeah, I mean, you said 27, 9, and 8 last
Ja
night, but that wasn't a good game for Curry. It wasn't a great game.
No, yeah. I mean, I'm waiting on the 45-point, 11 of 15 from 3 Curry game when he's just going nuclear. Jaws outscored Steph and Clay combined so far in this series. So I think they're going to get home, get some home cooking, and I think the Warriors are probably going to get this done in 6. And yeah, just because two veteran led, I don't think they're going to mess around with it. I think they know, because I think if they go back to the Grizzlies, I think if they go back to Memphis and if the series is tied 2-2, that's going to be tough because now, the Grizzlies still have 2 of 3 at home, So you're probably going to have to win a game 7 on the road. I think the Warriors are smart. They're going to go, we need to lock down both of these games at home. And I think they will.
Yeah.
And I think they have too much depth. And both of these games have been in Memphis, extremely close games, and the Warriors haven't even played that well.
And I think the close games profit the Warriors or help the Warriors a lot because they have those clutch shooters.
Yeah.
And when the Grizzlies are really just relying on Ja Morant driving to the basket, finishing or drawing a foul. So
I agree. Okay. Well, Warriors-Grizzlies 1-1. Hopefully this one goes deep. I got the Warriors in 6. But thank you for coming on, my friend.
Of course.
All year long. We're going to be, Jacob, go follow him on all the social medias. We're going to be back with another guest for you right after the break. All right, welcome back. I am now joined by my friend Sam Taylor. How are we doing today?
Doing well, Drew. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. He's coming on. You guys have seen him before. You know him. He's a good guy, smart guy. And he's talking Suns and Mavericks of Dallas. Now, this one hasn't been as competitive as a couple of the series that we've been seeing, but there's some storylines here nonetheless. Now, if you have been following, you know that the Suns are up 2-0 in this series. In the first game, we did see the Suns come out on top 121-114. In game 2, it wasn't as close at all, really. And the Suns won 129-109. So far the series, the Suns have gotten it done. 2-0, that's, as a top seed, you need to win every home game. But, for as fairly uneventful as this series has been so far, even though we have seen some great individual performances, the home team hasn't lost yet. So I still want to give some respect and some props to the Mavs because, it's 2-0, but both games have been in Phoenix. If this series goes to Dallas, it could easily be 2-2 in a couple of games. Home court advantage makes a big difference sometimes in these playoffs. Now in game 2, we did see Chris Paul with another masterful performance. He's been awesome in the series. He had 28 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds. So point guard doing it all. Of course, Devin Booker dropping in 30 points as well too. What were kind of your thoughts on how the Suns have been playing in the first couple of games of this series? Because I think they look fantastic.
Absolutely. And, the box score shows it. Their play on the court shows it. In game 1, they jumped out. Actually, in both games, oddly enough, they jumped out to a 9-0 lead before Luka scored the first points for Dallas. And in both games, in game 1, rather, they got the lead and they didn't lose the lead. It was close, as close as 5.
Wire-to-wire victory.
Yeah, a wire-to-wire victory down the stretch. And then in game 2, it was closer for 3 quarters. Dallas, they jumped out to a 9-0 lead again. Dallas even got a lead in the third quarter. They led for much of the third quarter, by as much as 5, or second quarter. And then they carried that 2-point lead into halftime. However, in the third quarter, Suns jumped out to a lead. It was close, and then they just ran away, outscoring the Dallas Mavericks 40-26.
Yeah.
So.
And that brings up a good point. Is just kind of how good the Suns have been in clutch time all year long. Statistically, they've actually this year been one of the best clutch performance. The last 5 to 7 minutes of a game, they've been one of the best clutch performing teams in the history of the NBA. And a lot of that has to do with Chris Paul. So I kind of want to go over his field goal percentage numbers this entire playoffs. So overall, he's shooting 58%, which is unbelievable, especially for, a guy that doesn't play near the paint where, most of your buckets are high percentage shots. Even though, a 10-footer mid-range for Chris Paul is basically a layup for most players. He's shooting 61% in the second half of all the games. And in the fourth quarter, he's been shooting 64% on all his shots from the field. And in the clutch moments of the game, I wasn't 100% sure what this stat was going off of. Typically, that means like the last 3 to 4 minutes of a game. He was shooting 71% from the field, which is unbelievable. And in the fourth quarter of Game 2, he really took over, and he scored or assisted on the first 19 Suns points in the fourth quarter. So basically had a hand in everything they were doing on offense, really just being the ultimate point guard, just facilitating, scoring, doing it everything for the Suns. And then and one thing that popped out to me too is just the depth that the Suns have, because Ayton got in foul trouble, and they were able to play JaVale McGee. McGee got in foul trouble. And then they were able to put in Bismack Biyombo, who's a very serviceable center, especially as your third option. So the Suns just have a lot of good players, to put it simply. And it shows. I mean, the bench points for them are unbelievable. And, when their starters go off, they don't lose their lead, which, happens to definitely some good teams that are top heavy with talent. Let's talk about the Mavs a little bit as well, too, though. Luka still doing his thing.
Oh my gosh,
he's
yes.
not getting a ton. He's not getting a lot from the rest of the team, but he did drop 35, 7, and 5 last game. And with this game, dropping 35 points, he actually, now it's a much smaller sample size than most of the players on this list, but he actually is the number one. He's the top scoring points per game player in the history of the NBA in the playoffs.
Wow.
He's scoring, in his playoff career, he is scoring 33.5 points per game, which is now, I think, just above Michael Jordan. So pretty unbelievable by Luka. Now, will that continue his whole career? Probably not. When you get a larger sample size, it starts to decrease a little bit. But still, just an unbelievable playoff performer by Luka. But the real problem is that Luka's getting his, but the Suns are just making sure that nobody else is able to score for them. The one big thing is the Suns are just clamping down on Jalen Brunson. So in the first series, he was averaging 27 points per game. This series so far in the first 2 games, he's averaging 11. So quite a big drop-off. What do you think the Mavs maybe need to do to even have a shot at extending this series when this goes back to Dallas?
Well, Luka can do a lot, but he can't do everything.
True.
And so they need to the Suns have been so meticulous about their defensive schemes and working it. And so I saw some analysis that, Luka is one of it's a unique case where he kind of schemes himself into bad situations. Like, he just tries to do everything, keeps the ball, tries to do it, and he kind of has to, given how they're locking down every other player. Yeah. Only one other player scored in double digits on May the 4th. And so the 4th was not with the Mavericks lineup, just with Luka, evidently. Yeah. But yeah, Luka's not giving up. He said to the media, they've got to win 4, so it's not over yet. We're going to go back home. Our crowd's amazing. We're going to live till the end. And so, they've got, and it's true because the Suns just kind of go off into the fact that this series isn't over yet. The Suns had a 2-0 lead in the NBA Finals. Now, I'm not comparing the Mavs to the Bucks, but in terms of NBA playoffs and kind of the trajectory of things, it's easy to get cocky. It's easy to get to know that think you have it in the bag, and they acknowledge this. Booker's like, we haven't done anything yet.
Yeah, as they say, the saying goes, the series doesn't start until the home team loses.
Yeah.
So a lot of teams have gone up 2-0. They had the first 2 games at home, but now it's going back to Dallas. Your role players play a lot better at home. So I expect Jalen Brunson to play much better the next couple of games. Hopefully they can get much better performances out of Powell, Finney-Smith. I could definitely see Spencer Dinwiddie probably having a big game in one of these next 2 as well. I definitely looking forward in this series. Do you think the Mavs snag a game, maybe send it back to Phoenix, or do you think the Suns just sweep them.
I mean, it's a possibility for both are possibilities.
Yeah, I think
the
I can
Mavs-
see anything happening.
Yeah, I think the Mavs honestly take at least one game in Dallas.
I agree.
That, I mean,
I think they get
Jason,
one.
Jason Kidd's season has been so special. You know, being a former Maverick himself, being traded back to the team. You know, the last time they made it this far into the playoffs, even further to the NBA Finals, he was in one of his last years.
Yeah.
38 years old or something like that on the team, having just been traded back. And so it's a special season for him as first year's head coach to kind of lead the team this far.
Won their first
and
playoff series this year since
Since his time,
2011. Yeah, since
Yeah.
Jason Kidd was literally on the team.
Yeah.
So that's pretty funny. Yeah, I agree with you. I do think they get one at home. I think
Yeah.
Luka will probably have a 45-point triple-double. I think Jalen Brunson will show up. Now, he is getting just hounded by – I mean, this is the thing about the Suns. They're so deep. They got a bunch of good perimeter defenders, and they're just making it really tough for Jalen Brunson. You know, Bridges, really good. Jay Crowder, an above-average defender. They just got a lot of guys to throw at these guards. And frankly, at every position besides Luka, the Suns have the better player.
Yeah.
So that, you know, it's just tough when you're only have an advantage at one out of 5 positions on the court. So that's just tough for them. They're really going to have some guys step up. But yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Their defense definitely needs to play a lot better. The Mavs were either the best or the second best defensive team in the second half of the year. So they got to figure out some switches defensively to just limit what the Suns can do offensively. And if they can get it done on the defensive end, if they can be a little bit more better on the defensive end, I think that will lead to easier shots on offense, getting out in transition. So yeah, I think I agree with you there. I think they snag at least one at home. I love it that they send this series back tied 2-2. I would like to see this be a long series. I don't want it to be over in like 5 or 4. I think that'd be kind of boring.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you there. And then Luka, you know, he's been playing unbelievable, but it's just really up to those role players that got to step up. And you know, sometimes teams can have a very successful regular season because, you know, these role players, there's less pressure night in and night out. But when that defensive intensity, you know, steps up, and the Phoenix is a great defensive team as well too. When that defensive pressure, you know, rises in the playoffs, it sometimes can just shut down these role players who are now like, whoa, I'm not used to having this much focus on me on defense. These guys weren't trying this hard for the first 82 games. So we'll see. Hopefully they step up. It's a lot on Brunson. He's got to be that second star for the Mavs. He had such a good first series. I would love if he was able to get back to more of what he was doing against the Jazz in this series as well too. As far as like going forward, you do see the Suns coming out of this series.
I do, yeah.
What do you like their chances on getting past whoever comes out of the Warriors-Grizzlies matchup? Do you think they're going to go back to the finals?
Honestly, you know, Chris Paul's driven. He, you know, nobody likes losing, but especially losing the NBA Finals. I was watching an interview that he did a couple months ago, just reflecting on losing in the finals and, you know, being there and the kind of the mindset that the folks around him, his coaches, his family, drilled into him, and that he's got a great, obviously, to make it this far in the NBA, you've got to have a great work ethic. You've got to be a leader, and so he's got those things. The thing about this stage of the season is that all the other stars have those things too, and so honestly, I feel like, well, the Warriors, they're kind of like back to their like classic Warrior. Like KD's gone,
the
so
Warriors look good.
They look good. Clay's back. Draymond's back. I just would love to see the Warriors come out against Memphis. Just the casual Warrior, like, well, the Coug in me wants to see Klay Thompson do well, and by extension, the Warriors do well. But I don't know. I mean, the Suns. It'll be interesting. It'll be like a 6-7 game series, the Western Conference Finals, whether it's the Grizzlies or the Warriors. I feel like, and I don't know. It's hard to make. I don't know. I feel like Warriors over Suns or Suns over Grizzlies. I feel like that's how it's going to go, depending on, because, you know, the Grizzlies, Memphis, Golden State is close, so we'll see.
True. It's going to be a barn burner. All right, well, thank you so much for coming on, Sam. A pleasure
Absolutely.
as always. Suns up 2-0 on the Mavs. We'll see if the Mavs got any fight left in them when it goes back to Dallas. All right, I got one more guest for you. We're going to be wrapping up the last series here, Celtics-Bucks, after the break, so stay tuned.
The stars are different ways.
All right, welcome back. Last segment of the Fast Break. I am joined by my friend Trevor Junt. How are we doing, bud?
What's going on? Pretty good.
Good. He's going to be on to talk about the Celtics and the Bucks, which, besides the Warriors and Grizz, is easily the most entertaining series so far. Even though the first two games haven't necessarily been that close, it's still a 1-1 series, and that leaves for all the intrigue in the world. Game one obviously went the Bucks' way. Snagged game one on the road in Boston. You saw Giannis have a pretty good game, and honestly, the whole Bucks team as a whole just played really well. They kind of just took the Celtics completely out of their offensive flow. You really did not see the passing you were used to with the Celtics team that we've seen all year. Jaylen Brown pretty much had his worst shooting game almost of his career.
Yeah.
Well, the Celtics team as a whole actually had their worst shooting performance of the entire season. So the Bucks ended up snagging game one, and I mean, you would have thought the world was on fire for the Celtics. After that first one, there was a lot of talking heads saying that it might be a sweep. Well, game two, with no Marcus Smart, I might say, the Celtics did come back, got the dub over the Bucks. It was a pretty dominant performance. They were up 20-25 almost the entire game. It did get a little bit closer towards the end, but it still was a solidly double-digit victory for the Celtics at home. That place was rocking. They shot the lights out of the ball, especially from three. They shot 20 of 45, I want to say.
43.
20 of 43, sorry about that, for 46% from deep. So a pretty historic three-point shooting night. And so Tatum in game two had 29 points, 8 assists. So he had a much better second half, and hopefully that gets him going. Jaylen Brown dropped in a nice 30 points. He had 20 at halftime. So he really was like the igniter that got the Celtics up to such a big lead. I mean, it was up to a 20-point lead before you could even blink. Grant Williams, 21 points, also playing unbelievable defense on Giannis. Now, Giannis is so good, he still had 28, 9, and 7. But it was kind of a weak 28, 9, and 7 if there's ever such a thing. Holiday dropped in a nice 19 points as well for them, too. He was kind of barely keeping them afloat throughout the game. They got a little bit frisky at times. Got down to like 13 or so in the third quarter, but eventually the Celtics just made too many shots. They were just unconscious from three. And this is actually one of the very few games in Celtics history where they actually made more threes than they did twos in the entire game. Now, so what are your thoughts on what were your thoughts after game one, where we saw the Bucks dominate? And then after game two, where we saw the Celtics dominate and kind of look more like the Celtics team we've been used to all year.
Well, game one, I don't know if you said Giannis's numbers, but 24, 13, and 12.
Yeah.
Wild. I thought the Bucks were just after game one, I was like, okay,
Yeah.
it's easy. The Bucks are going to destroy the Celtics in the series. It's going to be 5 games, and the Bucks are going to win the series.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that clip I'm sure you did on Twitter of like Giannis backing down
Oh my
Jason
gosh,
Tatum.
just demolished him.
Yeah, my goodness. And after that, I was like, okay, yeah, the Bucks have it. And then in game two, the Celtics bounced back and it wasn't even particularly close, as you said. It was a 20-point lead most of the time.
25 at half.
Yeah, this series, by the way, is so exciting just to see the back and forth. I think it's going to 7 personally.
I think it's at least going 6 or 7 for sure.
Yeah.
I would probably bet on 7. I think it's going to be a knockdown, drag-out series. Smart is probable for game 3. Really fortunate for the Celtics. Game 2, obviously on what was it, Tuesday? Yeah. And then Game 3 isn't until Saturday, which that's pretty unheard of for a playoff series. I can't remember a round 2 series getting 4 or 5 days off. I mean, that's pretty unbelievable.
That is wild.
4 days off. That's pretty unbelievable. It's good for Smart and honestly for all the players in this series because it's so physical. I mean, just banging bodies, man.
This might be the most physical series out of all of them.
It is. I think I would say so. Maybe the Warriors and Grizzlies, but that one's almost just like cheap shots, almost more than like. This is just. There's a lot of paint action, and Grant Williams and Giannis and Rob Williams. I mean, it's a bloodbath down there in the paint. And we've seen some hard fouls so far this series, but it makes for awesome content, and
it does.
It's fun to watch. And Grant Williams did a really good job on Giannis. When Giannis had most of his success, it came against Horford and Rob Williams, which is kind of unbelievable considering Rob Williams was like almost the defensive player of the year at one point.
Yeah.
But Grant Williams, he's so strong and low that I think it's tough for Giannis to bully him.
It shocked me because he is so much smaller. What is he, 6'9"? Is that right?
Grant?
Yeah.
I don't think he's 6'9".
You
Let
think
me
he's shorter
check
than that?
real quick. Yeah, he might be shorter than that. But, well, he might be 6'9". You think of a short guy in the NBA. And like,
He's 6'6". I was off by 3
6'6".
inches.
Yeah, no.
Yeah,
I was
he's
going to say he's
6'6",
short.
going against Giannis, who's 6'11", probably 7 foot.
Yeah, and he went against him on like 18 possessions and held him to like 9 points. So he did a really good job.
That is wild.
On Giannis. And honestly, for Giannis got a couple of the calls that arguably I thought were charges, to be honest. But they don't want to just keep calling charges on Giannis all game. You can't do that. He's gonna get
He's the moneymaker.
He's gonna get the superstar calls.
Yeah.
That's the league we watch.
One thing in Game 2, by the way, the Bucks shot 3 of 18 from 3.
Yeah,
as well.
they were off from 3, and that's kind of what gets me a little bit concerned though. Is like, this isn't a sustainable thing for the Celtics. I mean, you're not going to shoot 46% from 3 all game, but can they shoot 40% from 3, or at least right around there? I think so. And honestly, with winning by 20, they don't have to shoot 46% from 3 the entire series, but. It is a little bit concerning because when you're living and dying by that three-pointer, it can come back to bite you. Now, I do think that they have more of a versatile offense than just shooting all those threes. I think Udoka probably is like, hey, we need to get the ball inside a little bit more. We need to do some lobs to Williams. I want Tatum driving a little bit more. I want Jaylen Brown driving a little bit more. They were driving a lot to the basket in Game 2 and not even looking to go up, just looking to kick it out. That could come back to bite them. You got to switch it up. You can't let the Bucks, because they're a very smart team. Budenholzer's a good coach. They got a lot of veteran, smart players. They're going to figure that out if you are attacking the rack with no intentions to actually finish, and you're just looking to kick it out. They're going to start intercepting those passing lanes. So there are adjustments that need to be made, but I think Udoka is a good enough coach to where he's going to realize that, hey, we could probably got to have a different offensive game plan pretty much every game this series.
Yeah. Defensive, too.
I think it is going to be a chess match. Yeah, and defensively as well, too. Also, 2 really good defensive teams. Obviously, the Celtics being arguably the best defensive team in the league. And really showing out this last game. With Smart out, the defensive player of the year, they did not miss a beat. I mean, they were awesome on defense this last game, and they were suffocating everybody on offense.
I think the subtraction of not having Chris Middleton also matters a lot here.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the Bucks are still playing well without him, but yeah, I mean, you never know, dude. It could be 2-0 if the Bucks had Middleton right now.
It's possible, yeah.
It is possible.
So Udoka, I'm sorry.
Udoka.
Udoka. I mess up his name all the time.
Udoka.
What do you think? Like, what change do you think he made that helped the Celtics? Like, I mean, the Celtics were obviously on fire.
Yeah.
But
well,
what changes do you think he made to help them, I guess, win this game?
Mm-hmm. Frankly, putting Grant Williams on Giannis. I mean, he was the only one that could, like, keep him out of the paint. There was one time, I've never seen this before in my life. Giannis was at the three-point line, had about 5 feet of space, got a head start, hits Grant Williams, and Grant Williams wins the hit. Giannis bounced back and threw up a bad shot. I've never seen that before. Giannis trucks people.
Yeah.
So I think they found something there. Giannis was actively trying to get screens and switch off of Grant Williams. He, frankly, by the end of the game, did not want the smoke there. So it's going to be about figuring out how to keep Grant Williams on Giannis as much as possible and basically keeping Rob in the paint so that when Giannis does eventually get around Grant, because he's going to win some of the matchups, he's the best player on the planet, having Rob there to at least contest every single shot in the paint.
That true paint protector.
And frankly, just hope that Giannis doesn't have his mid-range and three-point shot going. Because, I mean, frankly, there's only so much you can do. I don't know how much adjustments were actually made. It looked like they were obviously came out with a different energy in Game 2. I mean, a little bit of desperation. Because you lose Game 1 at home, Game 2 is a must-win. So a little bit of a difference, frankly, in just energy. It was a must-win game for them. And then just shooting the lights out of the ball and just playing really active on defense. Just playing more intense. I feel like they hung off of the Bucks a little bit more in Game 1, allowed them a little bit too much space. Game 2, they were basically doing what they did to KD, which was just making it miserable every possession. Like, if you're going to score, and Giannis is going to score, I mean, shoot, he still scored 28 points, and everybody's talking about the great defense they played on him. But just immediate ball pressure is important, and then just being able to switch with any player on the court, and frankly, just having that defensive intensity and making the right moves. And just challenging everything and communication on defense. I don't know how much they actually switched. It looked like they were attacking the ball a little bit more, being a little less passive in Game 2. So probably just a pep talk from him, honestly. Season on the line. I don't know how much actual changes he made from Game 1.
By the way, just a few weeks ago, we were talking about Al Horford, and I was dogging on him, saying he's too
Al
old.
Horford looked awesome.
He's keeping up with Giannis.
Yeah.
My goodness, I did not expect that at all. Obviously.
And shot really well from 3 in Game 2. I mean, it feels like Al made every single three-pointer he took in Game 2. Is that sustainable? Maybe. Al is a good three-point shooter. Obviously, he's not going to shoot it the way he did in Game 2 the whole series. But if he can consistently have that three-point stroke, it's going to be tough because then he's really stretching the floor.
So Al Horford went 4 for 9 in the first game. But the second game he went 1 for 5.
From 3?
Yeah.
That's not true.
I'm sorry.
What are you talking about? Al Horford did not go 1 for 5 from 3.
That's what ESPN says, man.
Dude, I watched the game. He made at least 5 three-pointers. Oh, my God.
Jaylen Brown went off. That was 6 for 10. Jaylen Brown, by the way, I've talked him down so much. I called him like very low ceiling. I didn't think that he could really go off or be somebody that carries a team, but he's proved me wrong. Jaylen Brown is a superstar in himself. I thought he was just playing second fiddle with Jason Tatum all the time, and yeah, in some sort of a way he is. But Jaylen Brown has really surprised me, and this year he's just been great. Offensively, incredible. And defensively well. I mean, he's a good defender, but it's mostly his offensive presence that makes a difference. It's just something that I've noticed that I've always talked down on Jaylen Brown. So I apologize, Jaylen Brown. I did not expect this out of you. Mm-hmm. And it might be the coaching change that made a difference too.
No, yeah, and he was basically the reason for the win in Game 2. Just defensively, and then just taken over on offense. I mean, 20 first half points. And with Tatum struggling a little bit in that first half. Tatum was almost a no-show on offense in that first half. I think he only had 9 points, but it was basically a couple of contested tough three-pointers that actually went in. Other than that, it was just a couple free throws. Obviously, he finished the game with 29 points, so he had a very good second half. and was arguably the reason why they kept the Bucks at bay in the second half, because the Bucks made a run in that second half there, and he was able to kind of keep them off of them.
As a Celtics fan, were you confident basically the entire game, or were you a little bit scared?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, when they started cutting it down to under 15, when we were still in the third quarter, I was like, I don't. And our offense looked really stagnant as well too in that second half. So I was a little bit concerned there. But let's look at the series going forward. So like after these first 2 games, we are now going back to Milwaukee. How do you see the rest of this series playing out?
Again, I see 7. I see 7 games. But I do see the Bucks. I'm sorry, I see the Bucks winning in 7. I just think Giannis is too much to stop, and then Drew Holiday as well. This team's amazing. Obviously, they shut him down. They shut him down, but he still went 28, I think 7 and 9. So I mean, that's an incredible game. If he just, I don't know. I see the Bucks as a better contender, but I don't know. This again with the Celtics. The Celtics have been great this year. I mean, after what was it? The All-Star break is when they really went off.
Yeah, it was basically the. No, it was a little bit before the All-Star break.
I think so,
They went
yeah.
into the All-Star break hot. It was basically the turn of the year. It was basically 21 to 22.
They're feisty. They're absolutely feisty.
No, 2022 has been a completely different season for the Celtics. I mean, I'm pretty sure they were 3 games under 500 when it switched to 2022, or like it was like January 8th or something like that. And then from that point on, they basically had like the best record in the NBA. So yeah, I mean, talk about maybe like just hitting your stride at the right point of the season, and then that carrying over to the playoffs. I agree. I think it's going 7, but I think the Celtics get it done.
And that
at
I
home.
can totally see that happening.
Yeah.
I mean, they're a great team together, and their defense is incredible.
Yeah, and hopefully Marcus Smart is fully healthy by Game 3 and can play the rest of the series. And we'll see. You know, I'm not ruling out Chris Middleton. I mean, with a 4-day gap between games, you know, and if it goes 7, I could see him coming back for a Game 6, Game 7. I'm not sure what his timetable is, but it wasn't that serious of an injury. I know at first he wasn't even going to be out. It was just going to be the first couple of games. So I could definitely see him coming back, and that would
be a killer, man.
That would change the dynamic of the whole, because he plays really well against the Celtics.
High efficiency too.
Yeah, no, he's a hell of a player. I mean, their second best player.
Yeah.
Well, it depends. Drew
Holiday.
is pretty unbelievable, especially what he does on the defensive end. But alrighty, Celtics, Bucks, we're knotted up at 1. We're going back to Milwaukee on Saturday. Thank you, my friend.
No, yeah.
Always a pleasure. This is my last episode. I'm graduating. I'm getting out of here. So thank you so much to everybody that has watched the Fast Break all year long. I really appreciate it. I hope that maybe somebody younger in Wazoo Sports Network will continue on the Fast Break second semester next year. I'm sure there will be basketball content on. Like I said, thank you to everybody that's tuned in. Make sure you keep watching that Wazoo Sports Network content. I think I'm the last show of the year. I don't think.
Before we sign up, I do want to say we do appreciate you coming on. Like obviously, just seeing you like during the weekend wrap up, and then creating your own show in the Fast Break, and just succeeding and creating great basketball content, buddy. I'm proud of you doing
Thanks,
that.
man.
And he's going to Bozeman, right?
Bozeman, yeah, you'll see me on TV in Montana. So if you live in
heck yeah.
Montana, check out KHQ. I'll be a morning reporter out there. So.
But no, seriously, like good job.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, all love to my Wazoo Sports Network family, especially Trevor Jutt here. Alrighty, this is it. Like, share, you know, if you like anything we said today. And thank you. I really appreciate everybody tuning in, and I'll see you next time.